Time for a new segment, Drew. I'm pretty excited about hold or fold, kind of like poker a little bit, where we will talk about some programs and really in particular some coaches, whether or not we're going to stick with these guys or maybe we're going to put our cards down and kind of move in a different direction. And Drew, let's talk about Penn State, James Franklin. Man, a rough one for the Nittany Lions as they lose another top five matchup to Ohio State, 20-13, two trips inside the five, resulting in 0 points. Tough, Drew, especially for our producer, Ryan Stryker. Franklin now 1-10 against the Buckeyes with 5 of Penn State's 10 losses to Ohio State coming by single digits. He's 3-18 against top 10 opponents, Drew. So I guess I'll tee you up on this one. Are you holding or folding on James Franklin?
I'm holding. I mean, I think Penn State, you look at what they did this offseason. Andy Koltanecki comes in, Tom Allen, some other additions via the transfer portal. To me, Cooper, the big nugget from that game over the weekend, Penn State's wide receivers combined to catch just 3 passes. I am holding on James Franklin, but I want to know what the answer is at wide receiver. I felt like we had this same conversation a year ago when we were talking about the Nittany Lions. That seems to be a missing piece for them. They do not have a true wide receiver 1. I don't even think they have a true wide receiver 2 on the roster. And this is a roster management show, Cooper, where we are very aware of what's coming in, what they've added through the transfer portal. I don't look at this recruiting class. I don't see a potential wide receiver 1. That was the same case last cycle. It was the same case the cycle before that. So for me, I think from a personnel perspective, my big question is where's that go-to difference maker on the outside? I think Penn State could have used one in the red zone against Ohio State.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you think about Penn State, what they've done. They get the #1 quarterback in the country in 2022 and Drew Aller, and they get him from the state of Ohio. And Aller's been solid. They changed coordinators. You talked about Koltanecki there. You talked about Tom Allen on defense. So I think the encouraging part for Penn State fans is that James Franklin has shown a willingness to change. The biggest thing that needs to change is they're not dynamic enough, especially at the skill spots, Drew. You talked about that. I mean, think about the guys that they have in the backfield. You got Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, maybe one of the best two-headed monsters in the entire country. They have a good offensive line. They've continued to recruit that position well. They have a good front seven. The tight ends as well, Drew. We like them a lot. Tyler Warren, one of the best in the country. Luke Reynolds. They got guys there. Rappel, yeah, another guy that we like. So they have recruited consistently at, I would say, if you could describe it as one word, as good, but not elite. They're kind of in that top 10 to top 12 range year in and year out. But if you're going to get over the hump, then Drew, we talk about it all the time. You have to have the playmaking ability and you have to have the play caller as well, which I think that they have 2 out of the 3, right? When we talk about the 3 Ps, they are missing the guys on the outside. 3 combined catches for the receivers against Ohio State, Drew. I'm going to hold, but it's up to James Franklin. He always says, oh, I'm going to look at myself in the mirror. You're not that far off. You got to go out there and you got to get it done. You know what needs to be done. Go get it done. You know, this is not a team that is so getting blown out by 2 or 3 scores in these type of games, Drew. They're right there, except they have not won the big game. You go back year over year, this is a team that in the big moments, they don't have enough firepower. He knows what he needs to get done. But if you're Penn State, where else are you going to go? Who are you going to go hire? Right? This is the guy that you got to stick with, and this is your future right here in James Franklin. He's got to have some honest conversations. I think he'll get it right, but it is also a little discouraging that it's taken this long not to fix that position as well. All right, Drew, here's one. The next one, Dabo Swinney. We've talked about this a lot. Talked about him last year when we're talking about buying or selling stock. Dabo Swinney, Drew, coming off a tough loss to Louisville. We talked about the performance that Isaac Brown had. It really wasn't even that close. I thought Louisville went in there, they handled business. And you look at Clemson and you look at what they've done this year. The first game of the season, they play Georgia. They get blown out in that game. And then the rest of the way, Drew, they've only beaten one team over 500, and that was NC State and C.J. Bailey's first start as a collegiate player. So who is Clemson? What are they about? Are they good enough on offense? Do they have the guys in the skill position? Can they continue to be one-dimensional from a talent acquisition standpoint? I just see them slowly but surely letting go of the rope. Are things fine? Are things okay? Are they going to win 9, 10 games a year? Yes, that's fine. Are they any closer to a national championship? No. And here's the thing. You look at Clemson, and we'll hear the same thing that we did last year. Well, we won 9 games, and we won 10 games. But, yeah, you look at everything, and you take a step back, and you're saying, this team's not as good as their record. It's typically the other way around. And you look at what Clemson has here down the road at Virginia Tech, at Pitt, Citadel, South Carolina, Drew. I think it's going to be fascinating to kind of see how Dabo Swinney finishes the season. And I hate to be the devil's advocate here, but even if you reel off 4 in a row, I don't know if I'm looking at this program a lot different. Who's the guy after Cade Klubnik? Chris Vizina? Who's the guy you got in this class? I don't know. Are they that much better at premium positions? I'm just kind of like, where are these guys? Where was that kind of just confidence that this is one of the best teams in the country that you feared walking into Death Valley at night? Louisville just walked in there, the second best team that they played all season, and waxed them. So with that being said, I'm going to fold here, and it's not like everything is going to hell. It's not. But in terms of Clemson moving closer to their goals of being a national title contender, I don't think they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out which way you were going to go, hold or fold there. I'm going to go with a hold. And to me, I think if you listen to everything Dabo has said since Saturday night's loss, which, by the way, I need to fact check this. I believe this is the first night game they've lost in Death Valley since 2013. That's not encouraging. I'm going to hold because I think Dabo is going to make some staff changes on the defensive side of the ball. If you just kind of read the tea leaves and go through his comments, putting it on him. And I think him means his staff. And really, Cooper, Clemson, you look at the construction of that roster, where the strength should be. It's in that front seven. It's on the defensive line. And the Tigers right now, the defense ranks 95th nationally in yards per carry allowed, 4.61 yards per attempt. Louisville ran for 8.4 yards per carry against them. They just couldn't get the stop. Yeah, Clemson can run the football this season. They can't stop the run, and I think that has become a compounding issue, especially when they get these matches with teams that can contend for a spot in the college football playoffs. So I'm holding because I want to see what does Dabo do this offseason. We've seen him go outside his tree, right? He's made some hires. He's got guys that he's not familiar with. Matt Luke on the offensive line, Rumpf on the defensive line. So I think it's going to be a big offseason for the Tigers and Dabo in terms of, all right, which direction do we go? And I do agree, long-term outlook at quarterback, a bit of a head scratcher. They have to figure that out. Didn't sign a quarterback last year from the high school ranks. Don't have one committed right now, a month before signing day. Cade Klubnik's eventually going to be gone. Who is stepping in? Because we know they're not going to go in the transfer portal to get a signal caller.
Well, he can make all the staff changes. And I'm not saying, all right, like, maybe he moves on from Wes Goodwin or whatever it is, but from a talent acquisition standpoint, Drew, and they've been good. Like this is a good evaluating program, but in terms of where you need to be, if you're only going to rely on high school and playing young players, you have to be at such an elite level that there is no drop off. Even if it was Georgia recruiting the way that they did, playing those type of freshmen, you're going to have some type of drawback, some type of fall off as well. So a tightrope that I think Dabo Swinney is walking there at Clemson. All right, Drew, let's talk about Mike Norvell, Florida State. It's been rough, man. It's FSU's worst start since the Noles went 1-11 in 1974. The Seminoles' 1-7 record in the ACC is also their worst mark since they joined the league. They lost to North Carolina, Drew, 35-11. This doesn't even look like a team that's like in it anymore. You watch the tape, even if you're watching Omari and Hampton, it's hard not to be perplexed by the tackling effort by Florida State there, Drew. It's gotten to the point, you look at what they've done recruiting-wise, they're number 47 in the country right now, Drew. They have 11 commitments, guys at the top, Solomon Thomas, Kevin Wynn. It's like, all right, can they hold on to these guys? You got LSU, others working on Thomas. You got Georgia working on Kevin Wynn. The teams that we talked about when you're talking about holding, right, for Penn State and why you think they can get over the hump, it's because James Franklin has put them in a position with what they do year to year on the high school side that says, all right, we got a chance and we're not that close. You look at Florida State, it's like I'm looking for any glimmer of hope here for the Noles to sell the Noles faithful. And I'm like, I can't find it. I don't know where it is. They just seem like they have dug themselves a hole, Drew. And when they took advantage of the portal, it seems like everybody else was a little hesitant, a little bit resistant, and they went in there and they caught lightning in a bottle for 2 straight years. And now the playing field is kind of leveled out, and Mike Norvell and Florida State are kind of stuck in a position right now. I hate to use the same analogy that I did, but it's kind of like a sailboat with no wind, right? Like I talked about that before, recruiting wise. It's just like I don't see a way out of this. I don't know what this looks like for Florida State going forward and how they kind of dig themselves out. So I'm going to fold here, unfortunately, as well on Mike Norvell.
Yeah, I'm folding as well. $60 million buyout for Mike Norvell. It's hard to see Florida State making a move there, but you're right, Cooper. How do you turn things around here? You're going to have to go into the transfer portal and grab 30 plus guys. And it's getting harder and harder to hit on those individuals because, like you said, everyone else is in the transfer portal looking for an immediate help. I don't know for Florida State, the 2026 recruiting class, so those would be the high school juniors. They're ranked in the top 10 there. They got some guys committed. Can they hold on to them? I think that's a big question. The other thing that stands out at Florida State, Luke Kromenhoek, the true freshman quarterback, a guy we really, really like, but he's someone that needed plenty of time to develop. Now he's thrust into action. He throws 2 interceptions against North Carolina. That's not a recipe to set him up for long-term success, right? Thrusting him into action when he's not ready to go behind an offensive line that can't block anybody. I don't know how Norvell does this. Another school where, hey, that December, it's going to look interesting. Staff changes, roster retention, high school recruiting. It's all going to come together in that 20-day stretch. Not going to be a fun time for Norvell.
All right, Drew, the last school on here, and I'm going to hit them quickly and get out because of time constraints, but USC, Lincoln Riley, 4-5, 2-4 in the Big Ten. They had that big win against LSU. You thought this team was kind of turning a corner, Drew. I don't know if Lincoln Riley has the year-to-year appetite to handle the recruiting the way that we talked about Dan Lanning, the consistency that needs to be brought year in and year out. I think he lacks it, and I don't think he's got that killer instinct at all. And I'm kind of befuddled by everything that USC has put out on the field, and I think that is more than likely because, well, they're spitting an image of their head coach. So that's why USC is in the position that they're in. So I'm going to fold there as well.